everyone. My name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach and author of the wonderful little book, A Life to Die For. I'm also one of the co-authors in the best-selling series, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care. Welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. This is episode 225, The Acceptance Lifestyle. Now, before I get started, I just want to say welcome to all of you folks who are here on the live presentation. Thank you for being here. This is going to be just a conversation between myself and my guest. So if you have comments or questions during the conversation, feel free to just post them in the chat, and we'll do our best to respond to you as we go. Now, acceptance is a profoundly significant aspect of personal growth and well-being. It involves embracing and acknowledging everything about your life and taking responsibility for your relationship to all of it. Self-acceptance is particularly important because it fosters an authentic honoring of all of who you are, including your strengths, weaknesses, and imperfections, whether they are real or imagined. By cultivating a lifestyle of acceptance, you can enjoy many benefits that contribute to your overall happiness and fulfillment. Acceptance liberates you from the dysfunctional need to seek external validation while empowering you to navigate life's challenges with flexibility. Instead of being consumed by self-doubt or dwelling on past mistakes, you can engage self-acceptance to facilitate learning from those experiences and moving forward with more intention. A growth mindset tends to emerge where failures are seen as opportunities for learning and personal development. Embracing flaws and vulnerabilities with compassion and understanding allows you to build resilience, bounce back from setbacks, and face future obstacles with confidence. Self-acceptance promotes a sense of inner peace and contentment. When you accept yourself as you are, you liberate yourself from the burden of constantly striving for an unattainable ideal or comparing yourself to others. This inner peace allows you to appreciate your unique and wonderful qualities and to celebrate all of your accomplishments, fostering a positive self-image and enhancing your overall self-esteem. Okay, I'm getting some feedback here. I'm not sure where that's coming from, but it's gone now. As you accept yourself with greater self-love, you become more in all of more present in all of your interactions, and you learn to express thoughts, emotions, and needs more honestly, which promotes more intimate connections. Now, for this episode of Life Mastery TV, we're going to dive into this idea of acceptance in detail, with particular emphasis on making it more of a lifestyle than an occasional practice. So to help guide this discussion, I've invited back my friend and colleague, Scott Holmes, who has already shown up on screen a few times here, to share some of his wisdom on the topic. As an energetic healing practitioner and meditation teacher with many years of experience, Scott has a passion for this topic, and obviously he's excited to share his brilliance with all of us as he keeps showing up. This is great. So please join me in welcoming Scott Holmes back to the program. Welcome, Scott. Thanks again for joining me. I know it's been a while since we did this together, although you and I have been on another show together, so that's good. But this particular program, I think the last time you were on was a little over a year ago. But anyway, I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have these discussions with you. You always bring out the best in me when we delve into these topics. Really, you have you bring that part of it. You bring that slightly different perspective, and you bring it down to earth for everybody can understand it.
Right. Well, so I just noticed a shift in your camera. Did something change? Did you have to switch cameras? Or
I had to switch. Yeah, I had to switch devices because I was getting stuck and getting feedback and every other bad thing that happens for whatever reason. Whenever we do this, it's always we'll do 17 different things and never have a problem, and yet when we go to do one of these, there's always one. So thank you.
All right, well, at least you're here and it's all good. Now, look, I know that acceptance is important, and accepting technical glitches is part of that. So, maybe that's what happens. I bring up a topic and something happens to just help us to learn more about that topic.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've been in IT for a while, and if you expect everything to perform perfectly each and every time, I'm going to be sorely disappointed.
well, that's what they say. I've heard people say that expectation is the mother of disappointment, and I think it's true. And so, I think your idea of acceptance is important because, as you say, we don't always get what we want. We don't always get what we think we want. But I think we always get what we need or what we are really asking for at the deepest level of our consciousness. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. Especially when I was younger, I was told what I should look for, what I should perform at, what I should do in order to get everything that I needed: a bigger house, a bigger car, more. I should be able to take care of my family in such a way that it always, you were always there, you were always present. You basically put the cape on every day, right? And you flew
Right.
out the door and you flew home, and whenever there was a problem, you were there. And you were that superhuman person, that you were super dad. And there wasn't a that was the accepted, if you will, the accepted way that my parents saw life. They grew up in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and I was born in 57, and it's entirely different animal. Um, we're I accept that my grandchildren are growing up in a world that I'll never see, that I
Hmm.
stood. So that acceptance of what they do now, what the norm is for them, is. Um, I know a lot of grandparents who bite their tongue because they think, well, that's not how I was raised. That's not how I should do it. This is what my grandchildren should do. But it's an entirely different animal now. It's entirely different environment that they grow up in. My granddaughter at 6 months old could turn on the phone and play games. She could turn
Right.
on the computer. I didn't have a computer in my home until I was 40.
Yeah,
As
right.
so, it's an entirely different animal, and I think with age, as we've talked about many times, when you get older, you there are a lot of things you have to accept that you're not familiar with. You have to kind of accept that change.
Yeah.
My
Well,
dad,
one thing I've had to accept getting older is that other older people don't look older anymore. When I was a kid, anybody who was like 25 or older looked like, you're old. You don't even know what you're talking about. But now I see people who are 20 years older than me, and I think, man, how do you get to live so long? I think completely different things, and I find that I respect older people a lot more than I used to when I was younger. And I think that there's something that well, I think our whole society needs to spend more time learning from the elders of the community, as you and I have already talked about. But that's a different topic for another day. I think you brought up some interesting points about this whole thing about family dynamics and how we're raised and the kinds of homes that we live in, the kinds of rules that we are exposed to, the conditioning, all that stuff. That plays a really, really big part in the way we approach life, the way we sometimes develop expectations about how things are supposed to go, or how we maybe have expectations of ourselves, expecting ourselves to live up to someone else's, you know, definition of what it's supposed to be.
oh, absolutely, all the way down the line, we have those expectations, those familiar expectations of family or our tribe or wherever, how we were raised, that they had certain expectations, and we accepted those because we didn't know any better. We didn't have a lot of choice, unless we were the rebel, and we're always getting punished. My mom, I'm the oldest of four, and my mother said, and I always used to get punished, and then my brother, who was 7 years younger, would do the same thing, and they go, okay. It's that it's that expectation that your parents bring forth, and years later, when I was in my 40s, my mother looked at me and said, "Yep, you were the only one we worried about, you." And I
That's
was,
right.
and I thought I lived within the parameters that they had set up. I thought that I was doing absolutely everything. I got married young. I was working 3 jobs. I had 3 kids. You just you were made to think that life was hardship, life was a grind, life was
Mhm.
getting out there every day and doing all that, and not, whether you enjoyed it or not, it really didn't matter much. You just provided for your family. You did all of those things, and
Yeah.
it's that accepted way of life.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think as we all grow, as we all go through that, as we all go through the ups and downs, as you and I have gone through the great ups and downs of life, and the ins and outs, and I've lost my wife. You've had different changes in your life. It really, that acceptance changes you. Then you start to question all those things you were told that were gospel, all those things that were, the truths, and you find
Right.
new truths as you go inside.
Yeah. So before you continue, I just noticed something on my system here. Apparently, when you went off camera, you must have left the room altogether and come back in on your mobile phone. Is that what happened?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that's so. What happened is you lost your moderator status, and I don't think your video is being recorded right now. So if you can go off camera one more time, but stay on that device, and
Yep.
then come back on camera immediately, what hopefully we will be able to catch at least a portion of your video on the recording. I know people can see it. It's just that it's not getting recorded. Okay, I don't know if you can hear me, but your audio just went off. Oh no. Okay, now your audio is back on, but you need to just unshare your camera.
Unshare.
Unshare the camera. There we go. Now come back on. There we go. Okay, your camera's back on, and now you got to get your audio back on as well. There we go. All right. Hopefully, that little exercise will make sure that we catch at least this part of the video going forward. So, sorry about that, folks. It's one of these technical weird things that happen sometimes. So, anyway, yeah, this whole idea of how we were raised, the kind of family life we had, and how expectations were set for us. I think that's affected every single one of us on the planet, and it will continue to affect. Even the most enlightened parents are going to put something on their kids. It's just what we do. Uh, Although I think it would be quite different if parents were enlightened enough to understand that this child coming into their stewardship, into their shepherdship, whatever, was a divine, magnificent, unlimited spiritual being of light and love, if they could bring that in and not teach them anything but help them to learn instead, I
Yep.
think things could be very different, and help them to express the truth of who they are and guide them to find ways of doing that in a compassionate and loving way. um, but outside of that, we still have a ways to go, I think, before that happens.
Even in the best of families, you find that. Yes, you're absolutely right. Um, the reason we talk about acceptance lifestyle, expectations, self expectations for us, for ourselves, because of all of those things that we've been told. This is what you should do. This is how you should do it. That's when we see ourselves as failures, or we fail to live up to that. And there's that not the acceptance of who we are, if it generally fits with who we are, if it resonates with who we are within us. And I've talked to many people, as you have, and through the course of them living their life, they've always thought of themselves as less than because they didn't live up to those expectations. So the acceptance of who we are and what we truly um, want in life, how we want to feel in life, how we find joy in life, makes all the difference in the world. how we view ourselves, who we see when we look in the mirror.
Right.
Because that, I think you and I, in doing all this work, it's the people we deal with is who do they see when they look in the mirror? Do they accept who that person is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and here's another thing about that. I noticed that when I look in the mirror these days, I see something completely different than I did when I was a kid. And it's not just because, you know, I got a few more wrinkles and all that kind of stuff. I'm just talking about the fact that I am much more aware of the truth of who I really am. And I have to say, I think that you can't really accept anything until you become aware of what it is you're accepting. So awareness is always the first step,
Yep.
right? And awareness doesn't just mean, you know, acknowledging, yeah, okay, this is a blue wall, that's a, you know, that's a white cloud, you know, those kinds of details. I mean, if you really dive deep into the essence of something, you know, peel away all the physical descriptors and start looking at the essence of something, you begin to see much more in the way of truth. Because, you know, often, like I said, you know, I look out and I see this wall, it's a blue wall in my room here. Well, yeah, but what's the truth about the wall? What's the truth about the wall? What is that wall? What is its essence? And that same thing holds true for me. Sure, I see this face, you know, I see these eyes, I see, you know, the wrinkles, but none of that stuff is who I am. Those are just the external appearance of some aspect of my energy. That's all they are. So when I look at other people now, I realize, oh, okay, I see this body, I see this shape, I see these bumps and these curves and all this other stuff, but that's not who the person is. I wonder who that person really is. And how can I find out? Well, I find out by engaging, right? And so awareness is really about diving deep into the essence of something. And once you do that, then you can become more accepting. One of my favorite quotes, and I use this on the front page of my website, is nothing changes until it becomes what it is. You know, and when the first time I heard that, it just tripped my brain circuits. I said, "What? That doesn't make any sense. Of course, everything is what it is. How can it not change?" I mean, but after I meditated on it, I began to understand it, and it's all in relation to what I just said about peeling away the layers and getting down to the essence and understanding what something really is. Once you get there and you can accept it as it is, now you have the power to change. So nothing can change until in your mind it becomes what it is, you see. That's
You nicely put, wonderfully done. Presence, being present, having that acceptance. And you're right, you can't accept anything until you accept yourself. You can't accept yourself until you kind of stripped away the layers and you see who you are, what you are, understand who you are, and accept that.
right.
And when you do, nobody can come to you and say, you know what, you do this, you do that, you do this. You know, I don't like this about you. I don't like that about you. It's like, okay. And you realize when those things happen, it's not that you are unworthy or you haven't lived up to a goal, but it's their perception of you. It doesn't change who you are. It doesn't change anything about you. You know, I'm left-handed instead of right-handed. I'm messy when I cook in the kitchen. Whatever that is that you do, that
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't make you wrong. It just makes you. This is who I am.
That's right. Yeah. And the other thing is everything that I think, say, do, or feel is an expression of who I am. But those things I think, say, do, or feel are not who I am. They're merely expressions
Of
of
it.
who I am. And those expressions can change over time as I evolve and grow and shift and change and begin to express more and more of who I am. And all of this is a part of the process of growing and enlightening and, as we like to say, transcending. You know, it's about becoming who I really am. And only way I can become who I really am is by releasing all the false images that I believe I have about myself. And that's true of everything. So there are some people who walk around this world and all they're going to see is the blue wall or the white cloud. That's all they're going to see. They're not going to go any deeper than that. And they're going to say that wall is a wall, period, end of discussion, right? And I feel sad for those people because, well, I was one of them at one time. I went through a lot of my life that way, you know, not really questioning anything, not really looking at anything deeply, not really accepting. That is, welcoming it in.
Exactly. Exactly. We have very similar upbringings. They're very divergent. They're very, very different, but similar in how we perceive life and how we saw things and how we were told things were supposed to be. And we accepted that as truth until we started looking deeper and peeling away the layers and getting into it, and that acceptance of who we really were. You We walk through all of that to get to this point of transcendent, of present, being present as you know. Most of we say presence, we can't do it 100% of the time. None of us can. We're human. Okay, we have good days, we have bad days, but we try to be much more present in every time we talk, every time we see things, and understand emotions will come up, but that doesn't mean we have to act out through emotion. Emotions are energy in motion. It's energies that come up. Okay, that's wonderful. You accept. Here's the emotion. Thank you very much. Put it back down, and then you stay within yourself to be able to um, interact with the person you're dealing with, the situation you're dealing with, and just having that peace of mind, knowing that if you take that breath, I tell a lot of my clients, before you answer, take a breath. A lot of us, when we go back and forth, we're thinking about, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? How do I answer that? How do I go through that? What I tell people is, if you take that breath before you speak, it gives your mind and your soul a chance to keep up with what you're doing, and then you're not just speaking through your head, through your ego mind. You're not just speaking as kind of a gut reaction. There is thought behind it, and that one small gives it. You can talk with compassion. You can talk with clarity. You can talk with more um, just unconditional love. We talk about unconditional love with it, but I find that unconditional love is just acceptance. Can I change that? Nope. Okay, it is what it is. I accept what it is. I may not like it, yeah, but it is what it is. Uh, the
I
this
find the whole phrase unconditional love rather, it's a redundant phrase because love by its very nature is
is
unconditional.
yes,
And the only reason we use the phrase unconditional love is because most of us have been exposed to ego mind treatment, which puts conditions on everything. And that's kind of what happens. And so the ego mind is the part that thinks about withholding love or using love as a weapon or a manipulation tool or some other thing like that. But that's not what love is. That's whatever that action is. That has nothing to do with love. That might have something to do with affection or connection or some of those other things, but it isn't real love. So the words unconditional love really are redundant, but most people need to hear it that way because they want to know the distinction between ego mind love and heartfelt soul love. And that's really what I think we're talking about here.
and I fully agree with you. If in talking with somebody you say I love you, they kind of go, ooh, wait a minute.
I have to say it back now.
I don't know, what does he mean. What does he mean? But how do I? Oh my God, what do I do?
Right.
And that acceptance, it's just and that's why I think we have to term it that way, just to put it in proper perspective. You know, I I can say I love you to my best friends, and I tell them that. And it doesn't mean anything other than I care about you. And I have so many friends that are women, and tell them I love you, and they say it back because we have that understanding. But from the outside looking in, you have to kind of give that kind of unconditional love and light. Is kind of the expression that I use just so people understand. Look at, I'm just sending you that positive energy.
Right.
I'm, and so, so people will accept it. If you want to talk about acceptance, you want to talk about being present. It's about language also. We've talked many times about language, about putting your thoughts and your understanding into language that the other person will accept, depending on who your audience is, who you're talking to, how you're doing that. And that
Mhm.
takes an understanding of who that is, peeling away the layers and truly understanding who you're talking to.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I think communicate a big part of it. Absolutely. Um, and I think one of the things that I have tried to do in my life is I learned about this power of I statements. That is, when I'm speaking, I speak using I statements, and some people think that means I'm narcissistic or self-centered or something. But I can't speak about your experience because I don't know your experience. So when I say something like, you know how when you go fishing, you drop the fishing pole and you put the worm on it? And some people have never gone fishing in their lives. They don't know what you're talking about. But when I say, I had this experience the other day. I went fishing. I grabbed the pole. I put a worm on the end. I let the thing drop into the water on, in the pond or whatever. And before I knew it, I had a fish on the other end of the line. All right. Now it's my experience, and people who are listening to me can hear it as my experience. And it's not like I'm projecting it onto them. Do you see? And that's why I try to speak using I statements all the time, because I can only speak about my own experience. I cannot speak about anybody else's experience. Even when you tell me your experience, I don't know for sure what that experience is, because all you can give me are the words to describe that experience. We haven't reached a point in our evolution, well, not most of us anyway, where I can just say, okay, hang on a sec, I'm going to package up this experience and I'm going to go, whoop, there you go. Now you can have the full experience for yourself. I haven't figured out how to do that. Maybe some people have.
I think there are some people out there that
Yeah,
haven't been telepathic, not lately
right.
anyway.
Well, it's more than telepathy. It's basically shifting the entire experience, all the energy, everything, the emotion, the thought, the whole bit, without words into the other person. I don't know what that would be like, but I can imagine it would be a very fulfilling method of communication.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so
Okay.
so that's why I
But
speak using I statements.
now we have a new standard that we're trying to approach, right? Being able to give a full and complete understanding of a story by doing that. So we have another level to go up. I think a few of them.
That might be like a quantum leap level.
Exactly. So acceptance. I want to talk about a little bit about because we know a lot of healers. We know a lot of people who are do different modalities. You are out there showing people what kind of modalities are out there, and getting people to understand what it is about them that is special. And that acceptance, how many times have we talked to practitioners who said, since I was 14, I've been having these sights, these feelings, these sounds, things that weren't there, but I could see them and I could feel them, and they couldn't accept it, or they weren't accepted themselves for bringing that out, and they shut it down
Right.
when
Mm-hmm.
they turn 40 or 50, and they start kind of bringing that back, and they say, "Oh, I've had this within me the whole time." I wish I had done more with it. And it's that acceptance. And as you said, if we had enlightened parents, if we had enlightened families, when that comes out, instead of shutting it down, that we fostered that. Just think how different that person's life would have been if they were allowed to share their gift. I know some incredibly, and we've both met incredibly gifted people who can see things, they can experience things that you and I may not be able to see or hear or experience, but they see them and they're just absolutely marvelous. And that acceptance of that, and I see more and more, by the way, and I'm sure you do too, acceptance of their, whether they deal with dragons or galactics or unicorns or snakes or animals or their shamanism or whatever it is, whatever modality they do, there's more acceptance throughout. They aren't burned at the stake anymore. They are not
Right.
told they're crazy. That there is a community that we've tried to develop where they can share those experiences and say, "Hey, has this happened to you?" Uh, and that just being able to speak to other people about that on that level, on that vibrational level, that energetic level, is
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and there's something else that you said here that I think is really important, and I'd just like to kind of bring a brighter light on that, because here's something that a lot of people go through. I lived my life. I had this understanding when I was a little child of a gift that was given to me, of my ability to do something. And because of the way I was brought up, it was kind of shut down. I didn't have the chance to really express it. People have stories like that. And they maybe don't get able, or they don't have the opportunity to really connect with that gift until they get into their 30s or 40s or even later in life, 50 years old. And then they say, if only. Well, I look at it this way. You know, the first 40 years of my life was a real struggle. And there are many ways. I ended up being a very angry and resentful person by the time I got to that 40-year point. And I still didn't realize how angry and resentful I was until an event happened that woke me up to that situation. And then as I started doing my personal growth work, my healing work in the following 10 or 15 years, as that happened, I got angry at because all of that crap had happened to me before. Rather than just simply noticing, now I am aware. Now I have access to the gifts that were given to me. It's beautiful that I have access now. And what the other benefit that I can think about for myself is, if I hadn't gone through that first 40 years of unpleasantness, I might not appreciate what I have now to the degree I do appreciate it. And I might not be so deeply involved in helping people to find out the truth about who they really are, which I think is the single most important piece of knowledge that anybody needs to get anywhere in the world. So what I want people to understand from that little story is, yeah, maybe it could have been better when you were a kid, but it was what it was. So accept it and be grateful for it, because it got you where you are now. Remember, it's that gratitude that one day you're going to wake up and you say, geez, if my mom hadn't beat the crap out of me back then when I was 5 years old, then this wouldn't have happened, 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 and I wouldn't be here. Well, I might be here, but I wouldn't have got here by this route. Think about It's a Wonderful Life, and the story of George Bailey. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful story. I watch that at least twice every year because it just reminds me that all of us are a gift to the world. All of us, no matter how we may show up in the world. Even the potters of the world are gifts in their own way. So
Wow.
I think that we have to give ourselves a break. Just because we didn't follow the most efficient path to get where we are doesn't mean we've done a bad thing. So I just want people to really embrace that and take it in and understand that, man, you are who you are. You have somehow chosen the path that you're on, perhaps before you even materialized in this physical realm. You made some kind of an arrangement. That's what some people believe, and I actually kind of believe that too. But it doesn't matter. You came here to experience a certain combination of things so that you could bring your gift to the world, whatever that gift is. But you can't really share the gift until you've had the experiences. That's the key.
And in the book we wrote in together, Transcendent Men. Each of those stories was, hey, this is how life was really hard, really tough. This is my upbringing. This is how bad it was. This is what I went through, and this is where I am now. And
Yeah.
the gratitude. That was my next point too. Is that when you live your life, and you're definitely not perfect. None of us are, and you go through the tough times. That when you get to this point in your life, the gratitude of waking up every day, the gratitude of everything that is within you. Was once told that if you have a roof over your head, you have enough to eat, you have running water, that you have more than 70% of the people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so perspective is a wonderful thing. Why I travel, why you've seen parts of the world and where they have to take a 2-mile walk to get water to be able to bring back because there is no water. They have no sanitation. They don't really have a roof over their head other than what they make. We are very blessed to be where we are and how we live. and
Absolutely.
and that gratitude, you have to be present in order to be to feel that grateful, um
Right.
in through it. And again, gratitude is acceptance of what you have, not what you don't have, but that
Yeah.
gratitude allows you to accept what you have and be thankful for it.
Yeah.
That's one of the major things for me. When I went through a real tough time, gratitude was the thing I hung on to. Because someone said, name 3 things you're grateful for. And at that moment in my life when I was a low point, I couldn't think of one thing. Now I can go on for 2 hours what I'm grateful for, because I view things so much differently now. I am so
Right.
thankful for all those things. And that acceptance of things into your life, I found, just makes everything worthwhile. And where you
Right.
find and where you find joy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all know people who chase happiness.
Yeah,
Happiness
that's right.
happiness lasts until the cake is gone, right? You blow out the candles and you eat the cake, and then okay, but where does
Now
joy
what?
come? Now what is right? Okay, it's joy. Joy is how I define the difference between happiness and joy. Happiness is that kind of that event, that thing that goes by. Joy is what sustains you, what you
Well,
find.
I think that joy is actually, joy, in my view, is actually our true nature. It is, it is something that is always there. We can access it anytime we want to. And, you've been talking about presence, and I think presence is the key. Because presence just means that I'm not being overshadowed by things from the past, and I'm not worried about things that are going to be happening in the future. I'm right here right now. If I'm not right here right now, it's difficult for me to be in an accepting frame of mind, because now I am complaining about stuff that happened in the past, or I'm worried about stuff that's going on in the future. I notice I just changed my hands there. I changed the timeline direction there. Anyway, so if I can stay present, if I can stay to the here and now as closely as possible, then my complaints about the past and my worries about the future tend to fade away into the background. And now I can start being more accepting of what is in this moment. And when I become more accepting, joy just happens to show up. It's not like it really shows up. It's that I am peeling away the things that prevented me from experiencing it. That's really what's happening. So joy is always there, just as that beautiful, wonderful, wise voice that I can listen to if I choose is always there. It's always speaking to me. And the only reason I don't hear it is because I got all this other crap going on in my head, right? So when I come present, that ego mind tends to quiet down. Along with all the chatter, I start to feel that acceptance and joy, and that voice begins speaking to me in beautiful, loving, I can't really express it in words because it's just an amazing experience. And it's something that anybody can do. So
When you talk to people who give, weekend long sessions and different sharing different modalities, you just summed up exactly what happens throughout it. Whatever modality, whether it's breath work or you're in cold water and you're out of your body, or you're through Reiki, or through different modalities, or through meditation, all it is going beyond the mind to hear, to be able to experience who you are, and seeing that who you are and accepting who you are,
right.
and everything else quiets down. Why do we always breathe when we meditate? Why do we always, before we go into any kind of work, we always just calm the body down? We calm the mind down so that we can hear this much louder. When we accept who and what that voice is in our life, no matter what it is, it leads you to a much better life. Now, we talked about this. I was raised Protestant. I converted to Catholicism because my wife was Catholic, and we raised our kids Catholic. And God was always this preeminent being outside of ourselves. He was up there. God was down looking upon us. And now that I truly am an accidental Buddhist, in that I fell upon it, and I'm realizing that Eastern religion, they view God as being within, not a separate, but within, and that we find God within ourselves. And so the deeper you go here, the closer to God, the closer to oneness, the closer to everything.
Right.
And energy, time, everything dissolves the closer you get to it. All the most fantastical movies are kind of based on that kind of concept, that we make life what we think. Quantum mechanics is that nothing happens. Energy doesn't actually take form until we give it voice, that we give it intention.
Mm.
And
Right.
so how do we do that? We do that within ourselves. When we view our life, how do we want to live our life? We
Right.
we make all of that happen. If we're aware or not, depending on our level of awareness, it's okay. And maybe we'll accept it, maybe we won't accept it. But what I find is the people that are most grounded, are most accepting of who and what they are, usually live a life that really shows who they are inside.
You just said something that I think we need to bring more attention to, and that is that sometimes some people will accept something and some people won't. And I think we have to make it clear that when we're talking about acceptance, we're not talking about inviting in energies that can be harmful to your nature. That's not what we're talking about here. We're not saying that you should welcome somebody who's trying to harm you, let's say. However, here's what we're trying to talk about here, and this is what I think is most important. The event happened, and if you continue to hold the energy of trying to fulfill an expectation, a prior expectation that can no longer be fulfilled, then you are just putting yourself in conflict. You are creating chaos in your mind and in your soul. This is all tied in with the idea of forgiveness as well, okay? When I forgive someone, it doesn't mean I agree with their behavior. It doesn't mean I condone what they did. It simply means that I am releasing my attachment to a particular outcome for that person. I am releasing my desire for revenge or getting even or justice or any of that stuff. I'm allowing that to fall into the hands of God or spirit or universe or whatever you like. Because remember, anybody who does me harm is someone who's already in pain. People who are loving and compassionate do not go out of their way to harm other people. So we have to have a little bit of compassion for ourselves, first of all, for wanting to get even. That's the first thing. And secondly, maybe we can learn to have a little compassion for the other person and maybe even say, wow, I'm grateful that that person showed up in my life because it gave me the opportunity to increase my level of compassion. Can you imagine if we all did that? Now, I know that if someone starts to attack you, your physical body is going to naturally start to respond and try to defend itself. And that's perfectly normal. I'm not saying that you shouldn't defend yourself. I'm only saying that we can't let that energy consume us. Okay? We say, okay, it happened. I thank you for the experience, and now I'm ready to move out of that energy. I don't want that energy around me anymore. I am moving it out. I invite all that energy to just leave. That's kind of how I do it now. I haven't always done it that way, believe me. I have been a fighter. I was a fighter pilot. So I know what it means to be a very militant and aggressive person. And that doesn't always work. So that's all I want to say about that.
Well, the other thing is, in acceptance, you can accept what is, but you don't have to accept bad behavior. You don't have to accept. You can you put up boundaries, and by that I say parameters, and because boundaries, people think, oh, we're putting the fence up, we're putting the walls up, okay, we're keeping all these people out. No, it isn't necessarily that way. I talk about parameters, boundaries, speed bumps. Speed bump, you kind of have to slow down in order to go over, right? And it just slows people down when they get to those because you know you're really not doing something right here. I'm not really accepting of what you're doing, and it allows everything to slow down. When we slow down, we can. You talked about with compassion. You talked about with presence. We talked about with forgiveness. We can talk to people about those things without having to get involved full on. And we've all had those arguments. I did one, especially when I was younger. I'm going to be right. Damn it! I'm going to be right no matter what.
That's right.
Hey, I'm going to counter. I'm going to just. In the end, you both storm off. You're both angry. Nobody wins. Everybody loses. And now, when someone comes to me and they're really hurt or angry, I'm like, okay, look, can I hear about that? Tell me about it. All of a sudden, that anger just, oh, they're not going to fight me on this. Okay, well, this is the way I feel. Okay, let's walk through this. And much like you had said about how you change and how you talk to people, all of a sudden they're disarmed. They put down the club, they put down the knife, they put it aside and they go, hey, we can talk about this. I haven't truly gotten into a fight since I was about in fifth grade. I learned to avoid them through high school, through grown up years, no matter the situation. Or I just avoided situations where I put myself in that point of kind of knowing that something is going to come up that's going to be really bad, and I'm going to have to defend myself. So it's just being that awareness of it and being present where you are to be able to see it, perceive it. I don't know about you. I've always had that other person that kind of saw things from up here, a slightly different perspective. There was me walking through it, and then there was this kind of a voice, that presence up above me, and I never knew what it was. I like, okay, I'm running through the field, but I'm also watching me
Watching yourself run through the
run
field.
through the field, and I always wondered
Yeah.
what that was. I'm like, how does that happen? What do I do? Okay, and important times in my life, I had that duality within it, so it gave me perspective, and it allowed me to see kind of the whole room rather than just from here.
Right.
Uh,
Mhm.
it always made me see things a little bit differently, and people would kind of shake their heads. But what I realized that it wasn't up here; it was here. It was that voice being
Right.
able to see things as I couldn't at the time.
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. I just want to remind the folks that are here, if you have comments or questions, please put them into the chat. We'll do our best to respond to them. Um, Scott, so what is your recommended procedure for people who want to develop a practice, a lifestyle of acceptance?
I'm going to relate it to a garden, okay? And this was related to me like by Eugenie I studied under, and she said you need to weed your garden every day. In other words, you have to pay attention to you to maintain the practice, whether it's yoga or meditation or qigong or whatever it is you do, journaling, walking, taking a walk, doing. But what brings you peace to start your day? Do it daily. Do not neglect yourself. Give yourself that 15, 20 minutes or an hour and a half, however much you can give yourself, to be able to weed the garden, to water the garden, to pick all the dead flowers off, so that when you give that intention to a garden, whether it's vegetables and fruits and flowers, we all know people who have impeccable yards. They have these gorgeous landscapes, and you have all these bushes, you have flowers that are coming up at every time of the year, and they give so much time and attention to their yard. And I've always enjoyed doing that. I've just never been able to give that much time to the landscaping and all that because I had other things to do. But they do that with intention, and now I understand that I have to do that for me in order to maintain. If you go out and water your garden every day, you can pull the weeds when they're really small. You don't have to wait till they're waist high to try and take a saw and hack them, or a hatchet to hack them, because they've
Right.
gotten out of control because you haven't paid attention.
Right.
And so the fruits of your labor, it's much easier to spend 15 minutes a day in your garden every day and understand it and see it and watch it happen and give it that attention than it is once a week. And then you got all these things that go wrong, or things that are your fruit goes bad, your tomatoes get black, things are overripe, the squirrels eat them, whatever it is. You don't give it the attention. So if you give that intention and attention to yourself, you're going to have that and be able to be that beautiful garden each and every day. People walk up and they're going to see that. And that's how we give back to ourselves, that acceptance of who we are. And the acceptance that we need to give that time to ourselves in order to continue. Now, no matter if you go to church, pray, meditate, whatever it is that makes you that much better, that much clearer, that much more grounded, that's what you need to do when you find that.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden the day comes and you can see the joy in it. You can be
Yeah.
the joy. And that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful. Well, one thing I'd like to say, and this is something that people maybe don't understand, is first of all, you don't need to do anything. You don't have to do anything, really. This is not a black or white, one and done kind of thing. One thing I know is if you think you need to do something, then you're already setting yourself up. You're creating an expectation of yourself that is bound to lead to some kind of disappointment. So rather than telling yourself you need to do something, ask yourself, what do I choose for myself? What choice can I make that will give me the kind of experience, the kind of life that I really, truly want? And when you ask the question that way, what kind of choice can I make? You'll be amazed at how many amazing choices will show up for you. And then you'll have like a smorgasbord right there in front of you, and you can just choose something off the menu and see what happens. Right? But if you say, I need something, then you're creating a kind of almost an addiction to a particular outcome. And this is part of the challenge that we have. So think about modifying your language. Say, oh, I don't really need that. It's just something I would prefer or something that I would like to have. But if I don't have it, I can accept that I don't have it. You see, that's what acceptance is all about. It's inviting in something that you believe is going to be beneficial to your life, and then trusting the universe to bring what you really need and accepting that. That, I think, is what the true power of acceptance is all about.
Well said. Well said. You have a way, and I've always enjoyed this with you. You always have a way of bringing that truth out. And we talk about language, precision of language. Words are spells. We
Yeah,
spell,
that's right.
but words are spells. Words are the things that we tell ourselves, the things that we tell other people, how we communicate with the world. And they are spells that make things become real.
Right.
And it's our intention with the words of how everything changes, how it manifests within our life.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, Scott, we're getting close to the top of the hour here, so I wanted to just first of all say thank you so much for being here again. It's always a pleasure having a conversation with you, and I hope that the people who are here live got a lot of benefit out of it, and I'm sure that the people who watch the recording will. But before we close out, I just wondered, do you have any final words that you'd like to share before I wrap up?
Just for those of you who are watching, watch more of what David does. If you look on his past directory, he's got 224 other shows, and even if they're 4 years old, they still have that clarity of meaning. They have that sense of being true, and because he talks to so many different people about so many different things, and that evolution of who we are happens when we learn more and we stay curious, we stay present in our lives, and it just brings us more.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that, Scott. Also, I understand you have a free gift that you want to offer as part of this
Oh,
presentation.
thank you. Excuse me for the duh. For those who would like to reach out to me, it's rscottholmes.com. Do a half an hour session of just healing and clearing. For those of you, just for introduction, look at the website, look at it, and see if that's something that you might want to do.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you again, Scott. It's been a real pleasure, and I just want to say to my audience, embrace yourself as a wonderful work in progress, who is more than worthy to experience love, joy, and blessings. Uplevel your practice of acceptance until it becomes a true lifestyle choice, and give yourself enthusiastic permission to cultivate a positive self-image, develop resilience in the face of challenges, foster meaningful connections with others, and create lasting fulfillment from within. So thank you all for watching today's program, and remember, you can catch the recordings of this and every other previous episode on my website at lifemasterytv.com. And friends, I invite you to remember to practice my life mastery mantra every day. It goes like this: I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So until we meet again, my name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach, wishing you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. See you next time on Life Mastery TV. Bye-bye.